Hello ladies and gentlemen, we had a historical event of G2 losing to Fnatic, Fnatic beating G2. As a former Fnatic member, when we beat G2 in the best of 5, especially 2021 when we kicked them out of the World Championship contention, I know the feeling of beating G2 in the best of 5. In the moment, there's no better feeling, generally. It moves fast because in some cases you need to fight them right again, and that's gonna probably most likely happen in the finals because G2 will come back with a vengeance. So that moment you have to capture it because it's short-lived, and then back to the grind, and then you face up against them again. The beauty of a rivalry is the one that always pushes the other team to become better and better. So we will see if this will be a repeat of one of the old school ones of 2019, 2020, or if Fnatic can maintain the momentum and wait as the final boss of course, the summer split. Looking at the series, looking at what we can learn, the takeaways, the key cool moments, let's just jump into it and break it down. Let's start with the Game 1 draft. The Game 1 draft strategy is very clear from G2. They are targeting the AD carries that Noah really likes playing. I think it's a very common theme that you'll see in this best of 5 is that Noah is much better suited for this meta than, of course, Hans Sama. Hans Sama likes to play the Varus, likes to play the Draven, likes to play the Kalista. I think that we can add Misfortune into that repertoire. He plays some Kai'Sa, some Jhin as well. But in terms of slamming Zeri, it's something that he's never done. Playing Ezreal is something that is very rare too. So I think in terms of where the meta is, if we look at the strongest champions, Ashe is something that Hans plays too. It's like the 4 best ADs would be Ezreal, Ashe, Kai'Sa, Zeri, where they're all kind of, have pros and cons against each other, but they're very consistent. They abuse Static Shiv, which is a very strong item on the patch because of how much stats it simply has. 130% cost efficiency without counting the passive and without having crit on the item is simply incredible. Very easy to buy as well because it's just filled with small components, and all of these champions abuse that. Kraken is also a very strong item, and these champions do synergize with most of the drafts, and they compete for themselves. So obviously these champions are performing super good. So Noah has that edge that this meta is a little bit better for him, and G2 start off with this strategy and a very curious Nidalee ban, something that we didn't see Razor play at all. But this is something I would want to just highlight because later on, of course, this becomes very interesting because Game 5 is truly a work of art from Razork. So Ezreal gets first picked. The continuation here is that Fnatic showcase their Lucian and their Zyra rotation. Very happy that Europe managed to catch up to the idea of course, playing AP jungles, which is super important. But something that I like less in terms of watching LPL is the Lucian blind. I think that here, maybe Fnatic have information that they assume that Ezreal goes mid, so maybe it's passable. But I think the Lucian blind is something you need to be careful about because I think most teams blind Corki. The teams that blind Lucian are afraid of Lucian because Lucian is good into Corki. But Lucian is worse into some of the mages like Azir that we will see in the later stages of the series. So Zyra gets locked in, and then Brand and Leona get locked in. Leona currently is a champion that is incredibly broken. Why so? Her kit synergizes super well with Warmog's armor. Even on the new patch currently, we will see that she is still performing insanely well with the Warmog's armor purchase because of how her W works. So basically, her W gives her block. Block is the stat that just reduces the damage of the top, which has great synergy with HP. She gains a lot of armor and MR, so her synergy with HP is just incredible. She already has a lot of armor and MR naturally, and then of course the block, which is incredibly strong when it comes to being tanky. So Leona just loves buying a lot of HP. Warmog's armor is super strong, and additionally, Leona as a champion forces cleanse. Cleanse got nerfed in the cooldown department, and then additionally, Leona is super good against all of these junglers that are very strong. We think about Brand, we think about Zyra. You think about the other engaged supports like Alistar or Rel or even Rakan. These are champions that need to commit very far in order to be in contact with Zyra and Brand. Leona's ultimate is something that just offers you engage and force breaking into the sphere of influence of Brand and Zyra before they can act. So obviously champions like Leona, Ezreal, even MF, even Jace are very, very good against a champion like Zyra. She's of course mid-range, is very happy when people engage into her. In a meta where you kind of need an engaged support for comp integrity, Leona is incredibly powerful. Some general thoughts about draft. We saw also Renekton picked here, going to 4-5, Varus and Twisted Fate ban. We have to assume that these teams have scrimmed each other. Varus is a champion that could be banned for bot lane, but in terms of how we saw everything, in regards to what, of course, G2 picked in this series, probably this is just a top lane prep ban with the Renekton locking on 3. They pick Alistar with Leona showing, and then Jace and Misfortune come through. So they're following a theme of making sure that they have a lot of poke in the Leona and the Ezreal to make sure that this is a hard game for the Zyra, which makes, of course, a lot of sense. Alistar is a relatively short range too, so it's very hard to break into an Ezreal Jace sphere of influence, but of course it comes with a little bit of risk because Jace is very volatile, similar to how Lucian is volatile. There is a set school of champions that are very rewarded by a metric that is a little bit vague, but I'll try to explain it as much as possible. Champions like Varus, Lucian, Jace, they trade very well, they poke very well, but they need to do so in the right timing windows and with the help of information that they need to gain from their team or sometimes their own strength. But if they die to one gank, they lose rhythm and they lose flash, and they have to slow push waves out where they are potentially in danger of phase checking and they can't maintain momentum off of the first waves that they stack. These champions are then a great liability. And that's why on a player like Humanoid, who probably his biggest weakness is that precision of knowing when to squeeze and when to not squeeze, that is probably like his biggest weakness. That's why sometimes I would imagine that Humanoid maybe will think twice about playing Lucian in the upcoming series. We continue. Jhin is picked on 5, something that is heavily discussed too. Jhin as a champion, I think that he's very good into compositions that are rather squishy. Jhin is a champion that lanes quite well and is good with low economy. If he's playing against the likes of Misfortune, Jace, Brand, and Ezreal, I do think that Jhin is a champion that can find a decent amount of value. I think that Jhin is very weak against very tanky compositions, which we will of course see later. Looking at the game, we started off here, Oscarinin in the matchup, laning against the Jace. He E-forward twice and got hard traded on. Oscarinin lost all of his HP. This of course is very, very bad because the wave is something that, of course, Jace can crash with ease. And then Yai comes and collects. This is with the information that Zyra has, knowing that Brand is in the top side, Oscarinin takes a terrible trade. This, of course, is horrible for the game because it accelerates Brand and also Jace. A big part of the conversation in this series, and it will be a very big focus point for the next one, is both supports will just walk mid. So whenever you have bot prio, it just means that your support can be first. All the games that are happening are very, very explosive around mid lane. And when you're playing something like Lucian, you want to have the backup of your Zyra and Alistar at all times. This was a very, very important timing where, of course, Leona cuts through. They managed to crash the wave. And Humanoid, unbeknownst to anybody, with no river control at all, he just gets snacked on. I think in terms of draft, Leona is so powerful in, of course, the 3v3. And if Brand ever gets accelerated and he has a good base, anything that supports the idea of being stronger in the 3v3 is something that will always swing at the matchups. So in this game we had basically both junglers pathing in a separate direction. Oscarinin doesn't look like he can get dove, he's completely chilling, but then he takes a trade that is simply psychotic. Brand is just waiting for the crab and then seeing what's happening, but then Oscarinin double E's through the Jace. Usually you want to E, Q with the empowered to poke and chip away at the HP and to heal, and then to E out, taking it easy. And then eventually Jace will run out of mana and resources to actually, poke you out. This is looking fine. But just because Oscarinin E's in twice, all of a sudden his lane is in complete danger. Brand is going to walk up here and collect. Easy kill, which of course is very, very bad because it accelerates the Brand and accelerates everything else. The general theme of this series is that top lane, if there's time for gank, there's time for gank. It's very, very swingy, the matchup that I play top, but everything kind of falls around who can 3v3 better around mid lane. So bot lane push is only important for making sure that your support can maneuver themselves into the 3v3 on mid lane. So this is an important detail to carry forward, because the fighting will always lead around mid lane. Whoever has the stronger 3v3 and executes better will end up having the advantage, and that translates to river control, and that river control translates to objectives, and then in the long term also gain victories. So Razork tries to accomplish something similar on bottom side, doesn't manage to. In this particular moment, Fnatic are trying to just steal the red away, because they have a little moment of time here, because they spotted, of course, Brand doing the 3 Quagos, the Krugs. It's kind of weird here with Zyra. You want to pull out the objective, the red buff, but you can't, so it puts you in this awkward spot. Usually you want to be able to exit, but here Mickey on Leona is so tanky, he knows that he can face check ahead of time. They're cutting off any play here. Noah can't, of course, connect with the situation, and then you have the EQ onto Razork, and Razork has no flash. Jun combos in, trying to save him, manages to do so, but he, of course, dies for it. Hansama living with very little HP due to the barrier. In this particular moment, Oscarine finds a very, very nice all-in timer. He gets a stun off on the first E, and BB eases him away. The second E comes through. The stun was empowered. Oscarine flashes. BB has no flash. Oscarine finds the solo Bolo. So here, the crucial thing is, I can't blame Oscarine for giving back the kill here right after this situation, because he needs to, either he can just choose to base here, play the non-greedy way, but he chooses to push, which I think is also a natural reaction. Not so sure, he cannot push this faster than he did, and he doesn't expect the TP from behind, which of course is sad, but I think that leaving the wave, pressing B, would have been the way safer option. We mentioned before that Misfortune is having prio against the Jhin and the Alistar. That is the strength of MF. She pushes super well and she trades well. Heals up a lot with Vampiric Scepter on minions in particular, because of how her passive works, where she can give every minion a love tap and do a lot of damage, right? Kind of a pseudo Draven in a way, but you just need to hit a different minion every time. Looking at this situation here, I do think that, Yike looks very unpracticed on the Brand, because there's an opportunity to do a lot of damage in this spot where he does the combo. Here, he just E's and misses the Q, and then misses the W, like doesn't even throw it when he's in range. I think he plays too scared. And then here in this situation too, where Yike could at any point just burn his flash and play off of this Leon ult to basically annihilate them. Still, in any moment, I think that Yike, he could have just set the world on fire here. And I think that if he just got his ult off, threw it at any point in time, use his flash, I think they could have gotten a lot more here. Let's keep in mind as well, Razork had no flash, and I think there was opportunity for more. This example here is a very good showing of how important the bot lane prio is, and being strong around the 3v3. Yike is 1-0-1, has the sorcerer shoes already. Caps is trading aggressively because he has the backup on both sides. They're clearing the pink, they're denying the vision. There's no pressure on Misfortune now, so the team is just giga behind on tempo. This is something that Fnatic adapted to in the series as it proceeded, because G2 is just very good around playing around Caps, of course. He trades aggressively. Humanoid needs to back off because he knows he has no information, no vision. And swings like this, of course, are game breaking. G2 know this. There's no pressure on MF. There's no counterplay because Zyra's in base after doing the golems. They flash forward, Humanoid no cleanse because he's playing TP and flash, and they manage to find a clean kill. And this is so costly because obviously Lucian can't TP back. Lucian needs to snowball against the Ezreal, and they get a kill. And 2 platings, I believe, with no punishment at all from red side. You still see that Jhin, Alistar need to base. Razor is coming out on the map. This is a massive, massive swing play. You see, even in situations where both mid laners are on bottom side, the jungle and support are just looking to connect. That's why, cases where you play the Ezreal, you play the Jhin, like the point is that they can play in isolation when they're playing AD carry. They can take waves from afar without risk. Static shift Jhin, can one-shot the wave with one zap and a grenade, very, very easy. And then it allows the jungle and the support to roam freely. Here, they're doing a good job of making sure that they keep control over the pixel bush, so Caps can play aggressively and push forward. Eventually, though, Humanoid finds a really, really good moment to dash onto Caps and trade with him on the timer of his, EQ coming back up. The Kraken Slayer, of course, is very strong here. Caps has no Trinity Force. This is a very, very nice trade from Humanoid. You know, when he has the backup and he, you know, he has to execute in situations, Humanoid plays mechanically super, super good. This is a moment where I see a mechanic that I haven't seen before from a Lucian, because the next auto here is Kraken, but Kraken doesn't apply on minions. But the way Lucian passive works, if you find lethal with your main auto, your passive goes on to the next close target. Kraken Slayer is something that does damage depending on missing health. So look at the cheeky kill he gets here, even though he's out of range. A Humanoid is a cool guy. He doesn't look at the explosion of Leona's corpse. He gets the passive hit and it bounces, of course, onto Mickey, which is very, very smooth because, of course, Leona was out of range. It's a mechanic that makes sense, but it's something that I haven't thought of before. I think this was a, you know, from Humanoid's standpoint, he does feel safe because he's on his side of the map and he doesn't expect BB to kind of trap him in the bush. But here BB does a very good job of waiting for Humanoid to dash. So Humanoid, he knows he has no flash, no dash, and he just flashes on him into hammer stance on the minion to be in range and just beats the shit out of him. Boom, 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 boom. This is one of those deaths that I can't accuse and blame Humanoid too much for. The 2 deaths, you know, he just got punished by clever play and good map play. That's why it's like Humanoid, you just kind of have to, you know, you just have to fight with him, because if you don't, he's just kind of going to die with or without you, you know. But to just put him in the fighting situations, then he can execute, because mechanically, of course, Humanoid is very, very talented. This is also, I think, a moment that showcases, you know, Leona's power against this champ of Zyra. Zyra really, really is miserable playing against Ezreal, Misfortune ult, Leona ult. There's so many things that can clip onto her. She is very weak against long-range business. Here in this moment, G2 after getting 1 kill, Renekton being on top side with no TP, they're looking to force more. And of course, Caps goes under the turret and the aggro reset happens from Hansama. The bullets begin to fly and Ezreal just steals Mickey X's bike, which is kind of funny. It's a kind of a funny moment here. You know, in my mind, I do understand why Ezreal took it. You have to look at it from the lens of Ezreal flash is probably more worth than Leona, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. But Caps is gonna, I believe they're gonna show the camera from Caps. He laughed cheekily. Look at that smile. Look how he's enjoying League of Legends. Look how happy he is. I think this is Caps' superpower. There's no one that loves playing League more than Caps, that's for sure. Finally, the nail in the coffin. You see that they're trying to make a play to collapse on Jace or so forth, but Jace is just playing safe. He's playing on his side of the map. Fnatic is trying to find a way to put vision on the top side of the map. You know, this is good understanding from Fnatic because they know that the game state is completely losing for them. They are very, very weak in this position. They don't have any comeback potential. They need to catch the enemy by surprise. So I like the fact that Razor goes for this cheeky trap where he overstays and stays long, because you have to know that you have to create odds. It's like, realistically, G2 being in their position, if you have any respect for how they play, you know that they're going to be able to close out such a game with such a lead, with such a comp gap as well, with champions that need to snowball early. This is practically impossible for Fnatic to win. They need to get creative. They need to use Fnatic boost strats, and finding a little trap like this is the best case scenario. Imagine a world where they base now and then G2 cross into here, and then they have to face check through all of this, and they have to do so against Leona, Ezreal, Jace, and Brand. It's practically impossible. The HP that you need to pay in order to face check and get information is losing. So even though Razork, it looked like he inted, I do like this type of play, you know. He looked to send his abilities. He got, you know, the combo down on BB. It's a cheeky one, doesn't matter too much. They try to get it done and then they chase Razork to the death. I think this is a perfectly fine attempt. You know, in game it looks like, oh, they're inting, but this is the best thing they can do, honestly. And after this, of course, the game is GG. Mickey tries to contest the big bush. You can see that Caps and Yike weren't really tethering to him, but they managed to clean up either way. The TP cuts off any potential Lucian TP, and they can't walk through mid lane because there's a turret. So Fnatic, of course, they get annihilated here. And that is all she wrote. Humanoid is trying to fight back, but you know, ends up dying to Caps' ultimate here. The banana's coming. He goes into fog of war and he aims. He tries to get vision from BB, and then boom, the dash is not fast enough. And that is game number 1. Think to yourself, damn, G2 just smoked Fnatic. They rolled them up into a blunt and smoked them and just, that's some good kush. But Fnatic fight back. So this one, Fnatic go on blue side, the Ashe ban stays, and then the Leona brand adaptation with the removal. You have the Tristana, Rumble, and Nidalee on red side. Tristana, Rumble, basically global ban. It's just, you know, an agreement for everybody on 14-13, and then the Nidalee continuation of a ban. They pick Sejuani to pair with a potential Renekton or so forth, allows you flexibility in what you pick in mid, and of course support. It's like, why is Sejuani picked so often, Yamato? Is because Sejuani jungle works with any top laner, works with any mid laner, works with any support. It gives you a lot of flexibility and a lot of roles, and this is something that, of course, everybody appreciates. If you pick something like Brand or Zyra, of course, you need an AD mid laner because of damage mix. If you're picking these champions as well, you need melee supports for engage potential and someone to, you know, tank crucial spells. Sometimes you need AD top laners too because you want to be solo AP. You know, these are champions that are a lot more, let's say, fragile and are less flexible than Sejuani, of course. So Sejuani gets picked. She has good items now, and also she is strong early, which is also a great benefit. And the response is Maokai Lucian. We already talked about Lucian, but I'm going to repeat it again. Lucian blind, I don't like it too much. The mages are very good into him, and this invites Marek Brazzolini playing Azir. Azir Sejuani is not a pairing that we hate. That's perfectly fine. And on red side, of course, they need to ban all these champions, so Noah gets his Ezreal. The match is Kai'Sa, and I think that's perfectly fine and makes a lot of sense. This is a very unique scenario here because Braum gets banned, Rel gets banned, Nautilus and Leona are already out. So you have the usual suspects of engaged supports, which is Rakan that is left, and then Alistar. Alistar is a very, very weak blind, and Rakan is what is in between. In this particular spot, it's very clear that, you know, G2 want to make sure that they last pick their top laner, and at the same time, Kai'Sa, her weakness is that she needs to be paired with an all-in support that can apply her passive and allow her to engage in. She needs to have CC in her comp. You can't play Kai'Sa and range supports, is way too weak. So Rakan pick here, of course, makes sense. You're going to end up on Rakan or Alistar either way, and then they give more prior to the top lane. K'Sante gets locked in, and then Bard. I was kind of confused by Bard at the first. Bard is a range support that does lane well against Rakan. I didn't think that Bard had any great value in particular in this game, but Bard gets locked in, and then Varus on 5. You know, the main detail here is that you have two very fragile champions in terms of how they lane. These are champions that lose a lot of value if they lose momentum, so it's very crucial. But this Bard ties into the theme that we talked about earlier. In that first game, Lucian was getting completely fucked by Leona and Brand. In this game, Bard is looking to match that with his bowling ball face. Is it only me that whenever you see a Bard portrait, it looks like a bowling ball and you just want to stick your fingers in there and just roll him? Maybe that's just me. Nevertheless, Bard is picked because it's fine into Rakan and is ready to contest the 3v3 on mid lane. And then Varus and Lucian, as mentioned before, very fragile champions where they can break apart. So scaling, very favored for blue side, but the early game should be stronger for red side, of course, with the champions that they have. But crucial detail, Kai'Sa Rakan is a very, very weak 2v2. So Ezreal and Bard should be able to contribute in a potential 3v3 on mid. Sejuani is stronger than Maokai. These are very important details in terms of how the game, of course, plays out. So in this particular game, Maokai does the Kayn strat. You guys know the Kayn strat where you just do the enemy Raptors. The enemy guy is not gonna, it's gonna be oblivious, and then you walk in and smite the enemy red. This is a situation where Yike plays it beautifully, actually. Mute that, sorry Vedis. He looks for another Q, and then he begins to walk onto the red. So the damage that Maokai Q does is 120 plus 65 magic, because Bramble Smash does additional damage to jungle camps to improve his clear speed. This is a change that happened a long time ago. Here in this moment, Yike doesn't have lethal on the red, so he's just queuing the chicken to get level 2, which makes a lot of sense. And then he does this beautiful smite maneuver. He just queues the chicken. He doesn't want to push the red buff away from him, and also put it in lethal range of auto smite for Razork. So he puts a sapling in the bush, And then here, a cheeky little auto swing smite here with the combo of E, and Razork is, wow. You think to yourself, Razork, you're just fucked in the game, aren't you? Aren't you just fucked in the game? Wonderful start from Yike. A lot of pressure on Razork already. Imagine being in your own jungle, pushed away with this HP, leading to base, and Yike is going to take your golems. You're very late to enemy camps, and your tempo is completely screwed over. The funny continuation here is that obviously Razork can't stay around, and they're going to look for a bot lane dive. A little bit of a deja vu moment because it looks kind of dangerous to dive Noah. It's almost as if they are lucky that Yike doesn't finish the camp, because as you can see here, Yike doesn't get level 3 because one of the small ones decides to escape. The continuation is that Yike, he just goes for the golems, and Razork is completely pushed out, of course. The funny thing here is that I don't think this dive is possible, because Noah has cleanse and June has heal. I think the dive is very, very dangerous. Red side doesn't have a lot of damage. I think the diving could be a potential another, of course, little triple kill for Noah. But here, the funny thing is, the little golem runs away. Yike doesn't get level 3. This little golem that is left is exactly the golem that he needs to get level 3. I don't know if you guys know, but I'm now a godfather, and sometimes I babysit my godson together with my fiance, and he likes, you know, he like steals things and then he runs away, and then he wants me to catch him, and then he giggles, and then he throws them on the floor, and that's how we play. It makes no sense, but he's laughing, so laughing babies are so infectious. And this little Krug here that runs away reminds me of my godson. Nevertheless, Yike doesn't get level 3, he doesn't go into bottom side, he tries to look for the dive, but I'm happy it doesn't happen. But Yike gets griefed because he doesn't get level 3, and as you can see here, the sapling will kill it and his pet too, and Yike gets level 3 and he pieces out. Sejuani is now on his own blue. He tries to find, you know, some kind of reprieve, some kind of grace in this game. At least he gets a little bit of time because Maokai is looking for that gank on bottom side. Here at this moment, I really, really like Razork's move. So in the past, we saw players leash the Herald and just see how the enemy reacts, and based off of that information, just reset it. And I feel like this move is very similar to that. Razork has no intention of finishing the whole crab camp. He will only do so if the enemy doesn't react appropriately. And the key detail here is that he forces the Rakan to move all the way, the Maokai to move all the way. This is a moment where, of course, Varus already has base, he has Ninja Tabi, K'Sante wants to base too because he just crashed the wave. This is a very good chin check move because it forces the enemy to move all the way. You don't need to give up something for free, and in some cases you're going to also be able to just finish one because the first one is quite squishy. So here Razork grabs it, and as the enemy is contesting, you know, Rakan is coming, they're 3v3 on mid. You know, this is not the point of the game where Fnatic is strong at all. It's understandable they don't want to fight. Varus is 6 and K'Sante is suffering in the matchup. And then Razork just takes one, and then when he sees the enemy cross towards him, just kites and resets, forcing G2 to move all the way, forcing Mickey to move all the way, and not giving anything up for free. I like this type of stuff a lot, because it gives room for Ezreal, it makes Rakan show. You don't want to be in a situation where Rakan bases, and then, wow, Rakan can be bot, Rakan can be mid, Rakan can be top. They are doing Krugs. Are they doing Krugs? We don't know, because we can't face check, we are too scared. This is the game of pursuing information and forcing the enemy to move all the way, because in hand, this creates breathing room for Ezreal, because now he knows where Rakan is. Maybe he can trade with Kai'Sa, maybe he cannot, maybe he can move a certain way, instead of making Rakan super large because he is in Fog of War. The same thing for, of course, Maokai, and the same thing, of course, for Varus too. This dive in particular, obviously, Sejuani is in bottom side. I think that Oscarinin probably just didn't realize this Maokai was coming, because I think Oscarinin played it as bad as he could. You know, he EQ'd fishing for BB. I think this was just, you know, something he wanted to do for the lane, but not necessarily something he wanted to do because the dive was coming. Because it means that he uses all of his spells, and now the Varus ult post W, he just gets one shot. And I think that maybe he could have been a little bit more durable in this dive. Varus does a shit ton of damage, probably he can get dove anyway if they just chain CC, because the Blight and the W damage would still apply, and they can reset easily with Maokai, but a small detail, you know. We continue. Here, I didn't really understand what Yike wanted to accomplish. Here, Bard is in river, Ezreal is hovering into river, Rakan already got pushed out. Rakan is looking to get level 6 off of the wave, so Yike just needs to back off because there's no bot gank imminent, there's nothing to be done in river, and this crab is simply gone because June has XP advantage. But Yike decides to contest it anyway, tries to land some poke, and he gets caught in the process. This, of course, it's not so good. He flashes for Sejuani ult, which is fine, but just highlighting, the key detail there. As Rakan is looking for 6, you need to adjust accordingly. This detail is also very interesting because Broken Blade chases onto Oscarinin, and in the process also drops a ward. So he drops a ward here, and it seems as if Fnatic just know. They didn't ping out this ward, but you're gonna see here in a moment how brilliant this is. Actually, oh, they put a ping. This is something that I didn't notice live. They put a ping down, and Razork just finds the gank angle. He knows now where the ward is placed, and BB feels safe. And then Sejuani goes around the ward. Look at this. BB clears the ping, feels safe. But now Sejuani goes around the ward, they ping it. He queues over the wall. And remember BB, he's playing a champion that is very fragile. You cannot give anything to the enemy. This is a very, very beautiful gank from Sejuani. And keep in mind, this is Sejuani that was very, very, back foot. I liked his squeeze there on the Void Grub, and also how he contested bottom side, managed to reach level 6, and managed to push out Malka, burn his flash, and then find this beautiful gank timer too. I think BB probably could have flashed better, but I just wanted to highlight how Razork, of course, dodged the vision there and managed to secure this kill on Broken Blade. Here at this moment, I think just the crucial detail is, even though I think Bard is a fine pick because there's very little threat on him, June needs to be careful about how he plays these situations. He can't be the first one to get engaged on, especially after he uses his Q. There is nothing that he can defend himself with. So I'm not sure why he goes like this, because Kai'Sa, of course, has R, June flashes and portals way too late, and this, of course, wasn't necessary at all. Out of this replay, we're going to have a fantastic, fantastic sequence from Fnatic. Keep in mind here, at this point, after these trades back and forth, the early game going in G2's favor, they're currently 2.5k gold ahead. And here in this situation, you see that Fnatic is already hitting top turret, and K'Sante manages to steal one wave, which of course delays the push on the bottom side of the map. K'Sante is very tanky, Varus is not. Varus is very easy to dive, and they TP bot to push, of course, Oscarinin off the turret, and now they are racing. Azir already got first turret gold, and of course Fnatic is already hitting the top tier 2, and they are helping Azir to hit it, and then they walk away, leaving Humanoid with a shit ton of gold. You can see that here the gold is even though Lucian is 3-0-1. So much gold is funneled into Azir's pockets, which is massive for the game. I think if you are playing the red side composition, you always want to be matching, you want to open on Varus' side, you don't want to be in situations where you trade map. I understand why G2 did it, because they have 5 grubs, but in this particular scenario, the crucial thing was that K'Sante managed to steal a wave and then walk away without any death, which is very well played by Oscarinin. So an even trade is a good trade for, of course, Fnatic's composition. I understand, of course, that they are losing the mid turret here too, but I think considering Noah lost sums in the previous fight, I think that's something that would happen regardless if they traded into, like if they matched the trade into top side, played on Varus' side, or not, right? I think this mid turret would fall either way because of Ezreal having no flash and no cleanse. This was a very nice maneuver from Fnatic, because at this point, it's very difficult for Noah to posture on any mid wave. Maokai ults, Rakan combos, especially when he has no summoners. To kind of break the play, especially after trading side, you drop a lot of wards on the side that you traded on. And then the enemy is going to base and open on that side, and you're going to do the same, of course, with your top laner into bottom side. Here in this moment, I really like this play from Fnatic, because Kai'Sa wants to be on the mid waves. She is stronger on the mid waves, so she wants to push first. There is a small window while Kai'Sa is pushing, where if you don't show on the mid wave, where you can outmaneuver and outnumber the enemy, of course. So here we see the snap TP, Boom, the TP lands, and this is only because Kaiser's on mid wave. So this, of course, is G2's mistake. Very, very nice ward placements. You can see that, you know, the sweeping patterns of Mickey have been studied. This is something that is very common in terms of the prep. You kind of look up the timers of when players use sweeper and you track how they use sweeper. A lot of players have patterns of how they sweep. The most important thing when you use sweeper is to make sure that you actually sweep paths. So you can always access river through one point because you're not going to catch every ward. It is important that you sweep paths to make sure that your whole team walks through the same path if you want to deny the information, because you're not going to catch every ward. But this is a cheeky ward placement. This is a cheeky ward placement as well. And they managed to find the collapse because Kaiser, as mentioned before, is on mid wave. This is a very, very good play. Fnatic, of course, I'll go behind. The Bard ult is very goofy. Borderline June is enemy Bard here. But a very nice TP, of course, W, and then Azir claps back, and they manage to find 2 kills. Kaiser goes back into mid wave because this fight is already over. It's all about that concentrated gold for blue side, because their tanks are going to function very well with little gold. So as long as Azir is getting kills, farming, they are very, very happy. This was a moment where I thought that Fnatic would lose the whole series. In this moment, Humanoid gets caught on vision. He tries to connect in a very aggressive way. No one shows on the bot wave yet. No one showed through mid wave. He walks on the Mickey ward that he just placed. He didn't see it, of course, and Humanoid gets jumped. The CC of Mickey allows Hans to jump, and then Humanoid, nicely timed ult, manages to get away. Yike was holding ult way too long. They could have CC chained him and killed him. He just assumed that Humanoid in no way would survive. So still here, if they back off, they can secure Drake. They can still be very happy with the situation, it's no problem. But instead, they pursue. Here you see a situation where Broken Blade tries to go forward. He lands the ult on Humanoid, and then the heal from June saves him before the E procs the Blight. So there's no healing reduction, there's no lethal. So a good situation. Humanoid cheats death for the first time. And they manage to secure the Drake position. They TP, and additionally they squeeze the tier 2. I really like this exit here because keep in mind K'Sante pushed all the way top. They managed to secure this play 4v5, and Fnatic are taking Drake on the exit because they have a tempo swing and they have a wave. They take the tier 2 first and then they exit. Very nice sequence. Very, very good punish. You know, these are the type of things that you want to see, you know. Obviously, I say this, and I know that Humanoid got caught as fuck, but it's more about the detail of taking the tier 2 when you can, and also the massive trade that Fnatic did before, and then the punish when Kaiser was on mid-wave, a very natural move from G2, and then finding the TP play to snap their necks, you know. This was a very, very solid game from Fnatic, especially after that game 1, you know. This must have been like a challenge mentally for them. And now for the climax of the game. Jun, I don't know, he can speak English, he can speak Korean, and it seems like he can talk to snakes too. In this moment, G2 are just leashing Nashor. It is a good moment because they just saw Oscarinic base on a ward, Oscarinic TPs, and of course G2 have a lot of damage. But here the funniest thing is, Jun already ults, which is way too early. But Nashor, I don't know if is he timing it with the drag? Is the animation that obvious? Because if he does it with the timing, then I think Jun is just a genius, because I haven't seen anyone think of it like that. Because if we look at Nash now in slow motion, is there something that signals the drag? He kind of puts his hands up and Jun throws his ultimate as the animation starts. And then everybody gets sucked in, and the Bard ult lands. At first I thought that Jun might have been lucky, but maybe this was just intended, because the hands go up, right? The hands go up. So maybe I should give benefit of the doubt and say that Jun did this intentionally, because this was a brilliant move. Like, at first I thought he was just lucky, but this is crazy. He puts his hand up. That's a good mechanic to know, right? The Nashor puts his hands up. Let's look at that again. What is the signal? The signal is Just looking at when June ults, right? The signal, he puts his hands up like this. This is the signal for June. This is the signal. And then he ults, the ult is flying, and then everybody gets dragged in, and it's timed beautifully. And this, of course, this is a game winner, man. You get a nice banana from Ezreal that shaves the enemy. You get Maokai ult burned, they don't have lethal on the Nasher. They push forward, nice barred Q as well. A lot of engaged tools used. I think Oscarinin kind of went too deep. I think, imagine a world where Oscarinin doesn't R here and Fnatic just pushed them off and they have this HP disadvantage. Fnatic could easily just take the mid wave, take mid turret, or even start Nasher themselves because G2 lost so much HP and they lost Mickey ult, they lost Maokai ult, Varus ult, all of the tools are gone for a potential turn, and then maybe they could look for something with Azir, Sejuani, and so forth. At this point, I think it's fair to highlight that the build of Maokai is very, very rough. I think that this build is quite fake. I don't think that Liandry's gives you any significant damage, and I think that you are just paper. You don't do damage, you're not tanky. Obviously, you're never going to be as tanky as a Sejuani or K'Sante, but I do like the build that Closer did, that Canyon did. I think these builds are just better. Tanky builds with either Zeke's Convergence that gives you 100 more HP, but the passive being a little bit useless for Maokai, or you just go Solari, 100 less HP, but you have a very nice shield for your bros instead of Liandry. It's a very much cheaper item, but I understand that, you know, junglers like clear speed, but it's a big trade-off, you know? Here at this moment, I think a big issue was always like who's going to tank the Sejuani ult, who's going to be able to push forward against Ezreal Qs. There wasn't really anyone that could take that damage, and the poke was just more significant from Fnatic, and their front line was just stronger. So any front to back is just giga winning for them. And, you know, Varus, after being on the end of map trades, accelerating the game for everybody except him was a very big problem. As Varus needs to be ahead, but not only ahead of his opponent, he needs to be ahead of everybody else in the game too. If Azir gets accelerated and Varus is the one losing minions on the map trade, he falls behind in the game. And at this point in time, Fnatic is just simply fully outscaled, fully scaled. You know, they are fully scaled, outscaled. Of course, G2, I said it wrong, but you get my drift. I think this is a sequence that shows that Fnatic is very experienced in playing against G2. Even in this spot where G2 has 2 inhibitors down, you can see that Fnatic is very disciplined in their approach. They blue trinket, check every bush, basically looked for Mickey everywhere because Mickey likes to go on these turbo flanks. It's the only way they can really lose the game. They know what Mickey likes to do. They know each other, they screamed each other. They have the Varus info, they have the Nidali info, they have all the info in the world. So I really, really like that they were very methodical in the approach and didn't let G2 any breathing room. G2 wanted to look for some kind of steal, G2 fight back regardless of their position, but there was just no way that could be done. To get the Nasher in the end, and Fnatic, of course, end the game. They equalize the series in a beautiful fashion. Very, very strong draft. I think at the time, looking at it live, Bard was confusing, but the 3v3 mid is so crucial. I liked it a lot. And then I think the TP play to keep it in the game, in that they gave them a 2-for-1. And then additionally, of course, all of that gold funneled in Azir in the top map trade was very, very crucial for the game. Very bad sequence for, of course, G2 because they needed to fight, they needed to match at all times, no trades because Varus fell very far behind the game in those trades. So here we are back on blue side for G2. They go with the same strat, same bans, you have the same bans for red side too. Sejuani, Azir, that is the adaptation. No more Zyra, and of course, no more Lucian. They go Azir, Sejuani. After that initial game, it felt very easy for them, so they run it back. Zyra Renekton gets locked in, and then Ornn on 3. So obviously this trio already scales very well, but early game, they should be weak. They should be weak. Renekton, Zyra should dominate the 2v2 top. It shouldn't be anything that Ornn can do. They should lose all Void Grubs, and then maybe Ornn should even lose a full tower against those Void Grubs against Renekton. And then the question is Ornn more useful at a disadvantage than the Renekton with an advantage? And sometimes the Ornn wins, sometimes the Renekton wins, of course. Here a lot of AD carries are banned, and the Corki is targeted too because that's Judas Flex, and then Leona After that first game, it looked problematic. They keep the ban up, and then Misfortune Braum is banned for, of course, blue side. So Caitlyn gets locked in. I think that they thought this is the best blind pick they can do in terms of the matchups. They thought that enemy picking Kate here was the best thing for them. If Jhin is the only answer you have into Kate, honestly, when enemy is showing Ornn and Sejuani, I don't know what planet you're on, you don't want to play Jhin. You really don't want to play Jhin, especially when you have Ezreal, Renekton as your topside carries. The enemy team is going to buy a shit ton of armor. Ezreal also hates it when the enemy has a lot of armor because both LDR and Cyrilda aren't fantastic items for Ezreal. BT, Shojin, these are just better items for Ezreal. So if he is playing against teams that do less armor in their builds, he's way happier. So I think that you need to find just something that will be able to do that damage. I think that you can even look for a Ziggs here, if anything, but this is not something that Hansam will ever play. I don't know if you can do something funky where you look for some Kog'Maw Braum just for the heck of it, right? You know, you take a matchup that is weaker, but you have managed to find a way to execute it. You just need to pick some champions that are good against tanks, or is actually going to help your composition and actually stifle the itemization of the opponents. I think that the Jhin pick, even though Hansama played quite well this game, played fine, I do think that it is a very weak champion in this spot, obviously against tanks. These are the games that Jhin gets a lot of hate for, you know, and then people say that Jhin is always a bad pick, but I think this one really stands out as a sore thumb because of it. All right, are there any other AD carry options that we could consider? You know, I think Ziggs is probably the one that stands out as the strongest one. Varos is weaker now, but maybe would be better than Jhin. What else? You could just play the Ezreal bot. That's like a move, and you play like Yone. I think that's something that could be done. Ezreal bot, Yone. Jinx probably would be better, even though it isn't great, but Jinx would probably be better. Aphelios in some scenarios you can get away with. You could get away with my Lucian Nami is something you can get away with. I just think that this Jhin lock-in is rough. You're picking it for the matchup, so you're putting even more time pressure on your composition, and sometimes that's okay. You know, sometimes you accept that, oh, our top side needs to snowball. We need to just pick the strongest matchup possible. Probably this was the methodology of G2 in this particular draft. But okay, you have a team that needs to snowball, and then this team that, of course, scales. This game was very absurd. I have to tell you right up front. This game was giga absurd. The first thing that we see is a gank timer on top, which BB fights back against. And I think if BB fights in the wave, he reaches level 6 and he can 1v2. But take a look here how he plays it. So BB wants to crash the wave because Oscarin is like freezing it, and he has refillables running. Here, BB ease forward, ease out. Imagine here he empowers his Q on the wave. He will get level 6. But instead he ease out. Doesn't empower Q. I think if he Qs the wave, there's no gank. He's safe, and Fnatic is just wasting time. But instead, BB realizes too late, doesn't have flash, and they break his neck. I remind you, Renekton is a champion that needs to get ahead against Ornn. If Ornn is ahead, he can fight back. There's a significant item gap top lane. This is a Coffee Warhammer against Giant's Belt Bramble. This Renekton cannot fight back, not trade back. He needs to just play for his own HP. He shouldn't hit Oscarinin ever. But instead you have the situation where BB drops very low HP and Sejuani is looking for some counterplay because enemy Zara just took, of course, Drake. Instead BB walks under the turret. Yike gets zoned off because he's waiting for the Ornn ult. He doesn't want to get CC comboed and CC chained and killed by Razork. And Renekton is now 0-2. Round number 3. Broken Blade doesn't like that Oscarine is beating the shit out of him, and he's just kiting back and forth. BB could have just walked out. He's playing as if the lane is in isolation. Fnatic looked to swap away from the Jhin because he hits turrets very weak and Oscarine has TP. This is a very nice play from Fnatic. I like some of the macro movements from Fnatic. Very nice play. They have the TP bot, and Humanoid does get flashed on by Yike. Yike wants to play it safe, flashing over. I think his E range would be very close. Easy for Humanoid also to flash or dodge because he sees the animation coming, right? So the flash comes out from Yike. And Yike here, I think he just has a massive pathing error. I think that if he just walks downwards through the turret, would have been better. But here you can see that he is clicking away and he thinks he can get through, but he can't get through, and even the game is confused. So nice 1-for-1 for Humanoid after all. It looks like he was just going to die for free, but they did not. So Ornn TP'd into bottom. Jhin has to match because he can't race against the Caitlyn. I repeat, Fnatic with a very nice swap. Drake has spawned. Fnatic's composition, at this point, we have to look at the inventories, right? Fnatic have good items on Azir already, good items on Kate to fight, and additionally, Ornn and Sejuani are quite unkillable. Zeke's Convergence is an item that is meant for support, so its damage doesn't scale with levels. The earlier you get it, the more significant that damage is, and at this point in time, Sejuani is quite strong. Jhin, Ezreal, these are champions that spike on 2, and they want to, fight with a strong Renekton and Zyra. If that's the case, that's why the situation in the game is so awkward for G2. Renekton usually at this point should have like a Black Cleaver and a couple of HP items, and he should be the one being like level 11 and Giga strong, but instead it's the opposite. So G2 is quite in trouble. This fight that is coming up, Razork does a brilliant drifting move to find the angle. June also finds the W out, and these were a lot of plants that Yike planted there to get the poke down, but June just gets out relatively unscathed, which is of course a Christmas miracle. I just want to check if there was any way for them to chain CC better, but June reacts super well on the Q there on the hook in to make sure that Mickey can't auto him and that the root doesn't chain him. So here Razork, look at this. Someone give him a driver license and a Formula 1 seat, because look at that. He finds Yike and he snacks on him, and Yike dies before throwing his spells down. Mickey too. Actually, he gets his spells off, I lied. But very nice Sejuani ult. Here I wasn't sure what the fuck Humanoid is doing, because he walks into Broken Blade, sees him, pushes him off, and then he ults him away off of the E on the stun, and then he walks right back in. Humanoid tries to connect with the fight, and then he walks right back in. He just forgot Broken Blade was there or something. This was very silly from Mark. It's a cheeky little move here that you can see the Oscarine try to do. He puts the Q up to block the Herald, but it only works if someone's driving it. So Ornn's Q counts as terrain, so you can block the Herald if it's driven by someone, with of course that terrain. But if no one's driving it, you can't block it. It seems like G2 of course is aware, but here the fact that Oscarine used Q already means that he can't place his Q and he can't find the quick E, which is of course sad, which allows Caps to flash out. June dies. So I repeat, the game state of course for G2 is that they need to snowball. Very unfortunate with the Drake roll, because Chemtech is not significant. It's only really good for Renek, and Renek is such a piece of shit in terms of his conditions. He's even gold with Ornn, which is very, very bad for him, and he's behind the game in general. Chemtech Soul is a horrible roll. G2 have horrible RNG in this game, and the scaling in this condition, is very deadly. Here, Noah, I'm not quite sure. This is so unforced. Noah is just hitting a crab and gets dry hooked by Nautilus coming out of a bush that he didn't have vision in. Noah dies, gives a shutdown to Ezreal, and this of course is terrible. Very, very bad for the game. Noah used Cleanse too, and they lose a tier 2. Very unforced, and BB gives another kill for very little reason as well. It's like his team is retreating and he's pushing on a wave that is very deep. He doesn't have any information, and he's walking very, very deep for no reason. I don't like this from BB. This is a fourth death for him. He definitely had a very, very bad series by BB standards. Let's take a look at this BB TP. BB is collapsing on the enemy team, which makes sense, right? He's walking on them, but then he decides to do this TP. I would understand it if the play is to go for humanoid, because maybe there's a play where like Mickey walks on these guys, flashes over the wall, they commit hard on humanoid, but humanoid has Zika's arm guard and he can place a turret and they don't find a way to connect to him. So I think it's just a very bad fight selection from G2. BB's TP ends up being horrible. I think just chasing through the tribush, it seems like Fnatic just had very, very good movement with the information available. Because I think the idea of collapsing a humanoid just doesn't work because he has Hourglass. I thought he had Zika's, but he had Hourglass. So in terms of, leads, I've talked about this on stream a lot. Like right now, there's a gold lead, right? In some cases, like an approximate 3k gold lead can be very significant. In some cases, it's less significant. League of Legends right now, especially in terms of how the balancing is, components are quite weak because they want to limit snowballing. If we make a graph, right, in terms of the strength of a champion, it's like you have some gradual increases. This is like when you base, you level up, right? And then it's like when you finish an item, it jumps, and then it's like you have gradual increases, small, and then you have like finishing an item, it jumps. Especially with carries, right? It's like a lot of the scaling is exponential, like the items scale off of each other, right? Crit scales of crit, AD scales of attack speed. The more stats you accumulate, armor pen and so forth, they get better off of each other. The same thing with mages, right? Because of death cap, because of Nashor's tooth buff, because of penetration, right? It's very important, if your 3k gold lead puts you here, and let's say, this is the yellow is G2, and then Fnatic, they got their spikes a little bit later because they got the scaling comp. It's like they will get their third item later, right? It's like G2 gets their third item here, and then in this window, Fnatic is weaker, and then they get their third item here, right? So if a fight occurs in this zone, right, during this window, this 3k gold lead is not so significant, right? Because right now, if you look at the items in terms of comparison, in terms of purchase item power, right? You have a Zyra that has a Radiant Barrier, right? Verdant Barrier. You have Blasting Wand, Amp Tome, not super exciting, BF Sword, and you have a Noon Quiver. And if you compare it to the enemy, Azir is pretty much chilling. He's on same items, right? You have Caitlyn on 2 core. You have Sejuani on 2 core, which is practically stronger than the Zyra, right? And then you have also the Ornn with an upgraded item against the Renekton. So even though there's a 3k gold lead here, the gold lead is not significant because it's not allocated in the right spots. Sometimes 400 gold can be like the difference between your third item, right? And then sometimes that lead is just enough for you to break a game. But in this particular spot, I was saying it on stream while live viewing, this is a very good time for Fnatic to actually fight. Because if G2 take the soul for free, right? And they get 3 core, in that window I mentioned, right? When they have 3 core advantage, and Fnatic is lagging behind on 3 core, right? This would be the perfect window for G2 to pressure really, really hard and to squeeze Nashor, because of course Fnatic would want to build their economy to reach 3 core to match, right? I hope this makes sense. Don't always look at this for advantages, because sometimes this can be very, very misleading. This is a very, very even-based fight, while Fnatic have the best scaling composition at this point in the game. In terms of how the compositions need to play out, Jhin and Ezreal and Zyra need to win the fight before it starts, meaning they need to poke and they need to hit. Nautilus needs to play giga slow, Renekton needs to play giga slow, because the pure front to back, the frontline gap is just way too big, right? Renekton is a piece of shit with his Spirit Visage, we hate this purchase. Sterak is just better, right? Every way imaginable. Just a terrible buy, I think. We continue. So G2, they put a lot of traps down. They know they need to stand here, stand their ground. They need to poke, they need to hit, but the enemy team also have Warmog's armor, so not a lot of this damage is sticky. Fnatic position on mid-wave. I think the best play probably would have been to already leash the Drake and invite the enemy to come into them. because I think Fnatic made kind of a mistake of repositioning on mid wave. It looks like they want to be the ones posturing on Nashor, but Drake is already alive, and G2 have the next wave coming. So far, they are wasting so much time. I think it's good for them to trap here with Zyra, you know, to throw spells as they enter, you know, and have Nautilus maybe coming from this angle, and then you have Renekton coming from this angle, and then you pull out the Drake into here, right, and hit it here. That would have been nice. And then they make the enemy pay a price as they face check, because the wave is very far. I don't know why they are revealing themselves here, or why they feel incentivized to fight on the mid wave. Instead of inviting them into your area, into your home, into the comfort of your own home, they are entering into this, dangerous area that is the Fnatic fortress. A lot of traps are being placed, and now the wave is finally here, so Fnatic have some pressure on this turret, but Drake was alive now for a long time. A very nice angle on Ezreal, where he gets engaged on. Caps posture forward because he wants to find some poke, but Razork finds a very neat drift, and then the Sejuani will crack him, and this incentivizes Mickey to BB to posture forward. But I think this is a very, very big mistake. I think the G2 could have played it better, even though I think Fnatic is a lot more favored in a fight. They kill Mickey, walks into a trap. Now G2's champions, to try to get as much poke damage in as possible. But of course, Raz is going to heal with Warmogs. June's going to heal with Warmogs. I like how Noah played the situation, chasing after BB, hitting. Damage in the end with E and auto. The soul is taken from G2, which of course is very nice. Caps arcane shifts out of the Azir ult. He buffers it. King of buffering Mr. Caps. But this soul is very insignificant, and Fnatic managed to get a quarter kill on Caitlyn, and in hand also Nashor. So Fnatic's position should be Giga winning, but this gets very dirty, very, very dirty. 31. Elder Dragon is alive. G2 are trying their best to stay afloat in this game. Their front line is giga tanky. Look at those HP bars of June and Razork. I think the main issue for me is that Humanoid and Noah are both pushing Renekton away. I think they're putting way too much effort into the Renekton. I think that if they just fight together and just pull the Sejuani ult, find the Rel engage with Flash on any target, I think they just win front to back. I just want these two to be hitting here and hitting here, from these positions while you have these frontliners going for you. I don't think that the Renekton committing on you actually poses any danger. This is a very weak crocodile, and I think that it's very easy to mark this guy. We let it play. You have that June goes in when nobody's in range to hit. Mickey should be, taking a lot of damage here. And then Noah ease out into auto. I think they could have autoed more aggressively. Caps finds a nice pocket to hit from. June loses all of his life. And then Humanoid goes for BB when I think it's not necessary. Humanoid really sacks his position but flashes out, and they manage to kill Broken Blade. This gets very dirty. Humanoid low on HP. Mickey finds a Q. Tries to flash out. But a very neat combo here from G2. Look at that burst together with the Zyra Smite and the fourth bullet of Jhin. Very, very nice combo. Very hard for Razork to smite, of course. I think once again Fnatic misplayed this. I think that if they just played as a unit and used their CC in unison, I think would have been a lot better. Here this is quite unfortunate, but I'm not so sure what Noah's looking for. He walks into a plant that tags him. The Jhin is allowed to W off of. Very nice W. And then of course the flash over from Mickey into hooking him. At this point, I repeat guys, red side composition is so incredibly strong. These frontliners cannot die, man. They cannot die. Doesn't matter that Ezreal has Rilled up. These frontliners can't die, and the damage that Caitlyn and Azir can do is simply just GG. They're completely outscaled. The only way that Humanoid and Noah can lose this game is if they die in some kind of freak accident like this. They needed to just chill and just wait for the objective to spawn. Noah getting hooked over the wall, of course, is disastrous. Caps goes forward, Humanoid flashes and kills him, but in return, Hansam will kill him too. So 1 for 1. And now G2 is going for the ending, but the Bang Bros are alive. The unkillable Demon Kings, the 3 of them. You have Sejuani, Ornn, and Rel. They're just pushing on the wave. No one has damage to kill him. Like, even if Hansama had 82 bullets, it wouldn't have mattered. BB sacks his own life for no reason to take one turret, and this is going to have grave consequences for the fight that is coming up. Oscarine in TPs. Hansama tries to stay alive. He's basically the fast. Look at him go. He's just kiting. Jhin is a champion that gets a lot of move speed from his attack speed and crit, I believe. So he scales, gets more move speed when he crits. Oscarine walks forward, and the lethal is found from Hansama. The combo is very weird. I wonder if they could have done a better job here, because it did drop to 200 HP, but not the matter. G2 is very lucky that they actually get the Elder, but in this situation they are outnumbered and they die, of course. I think if BB didn't go for that, I think it would have been a more elegant situation where they could have just secured Elder and potentially also secured Nash, but instead the enemy team gets Nash and you get Elder, and the status quo of the game is maintained. I have to highlight, I really don't like Noah's build in this game. I think there is very little threat on him. I think that if he had BT, I think that he would have been so strong. This is also quite the funny situation, because I repeat, it's like the only way Fnatic really lose is if their carries die in some kind of a freak accident, because I do feel like Fnatic just rotate the rules and look for some kind of engages, you know, rotate the rules, burn summoners, because they can engage on anyone. They can engage on BB, they can engage on Mickey. I think that they are a little bit too timid in their approach here, because the Caitlyn and the Azir do so much fucking damage at this point in the game. Humanoid is taking poke damage, and it's so funny that Humanoid almost manages to die here. Almost manages to die in the weirdest way possible. Take a look at this one. Oscarine walks forward like this. Oscarine doesn't need to give a fuck, man. Sejuani and Ornn and Rel are so broken. Like, they just need to use the spells. Finally, it fucking happens. Look at the traps from Jhin. Look at the traps from Jhin. Caitlyn and Humanoid on Azir, they always get one shot by traps. And that's the only reason this fight is almost like remotely close. Because look how tanky this Ornn and Sejuani and this fucking Rel is. Like, the enemy carry is a fucking Ezreal Jhin with a Renekton is completely useless. These frontliners cannot die. June, of course, is less gold than the other homies, but it is kind of fucking funny to me. It is kind of fucking funny to me. I like how Noah plays here. He pushes forward. He creates space. This is very, very nice from Noah. This is very good, bro. I like this from Noah. But Ezreal trades his life. Maybe in a world where he didn't go and traded for Humanoid, maybe they could have won the front back after Humanoid's HP. Maybe Caps should just play with the homies here instead of pushing forward. Noah's flash onto Zyra, and he kills him. Either way, Fnatic win the fight, of course. Secure the Elder, secure the National, and in hand also the game. But still, crazy the Fnatic got pushed to the brink here in a game that was so secure from their side. They were completely outscaled. They just needed to play with a lot more precision. So that's something to look out for in the future series. All right, back to basics. Azir is out, Nidalee is out, Zeri is out, which means that Kaiser's in the picture and Ezreal Prio is dropped. They first pick Sejuani, Nidalee is out. That has been the trend of the game. Sejuani looks strong. And then Fnatic go back to the Lucian brand. Talked about Lucian enough already in this video, so I'm not going to talk about it again, but we do like brand. Corki gets locked in, Varos get locked in. I think Corki is just a better champ for Europe in general. I think that when I think of Humanoid, he's a player. I don't want him to play champions that need to squeeze to stay ahead of the curve to win. I'd rather have a champion that is heavily benefited from being even or ahead in CS. Azir, Corki. I think that Humanoid is very smart in terms of map movements and generating gold and when to farm side. And I think that you want to put Humanoid in those positions. Because I think when he needs to squeeze his feel for when he can, when he cannot, is probably you know, his biggest weakness. Varus gets locked in, which is very surprising after that loss, of course, and then Leona here on 3. Leona would have been good for this side. I think that Leona here would have been super interesting because once again the enemy is showing Lucian and then like Brand, and then of course Lucian, who is running no cleanse in mid lane. I think that Brand on 3 would have been interesting, but maybe Varus is just their go-to flex. Kai'Sa gets locked in as their go-to blind, and then MF Renekton gets picked because they don't know where Varus goes, they're unsure, and then Renekton on 5 against Varus. I want to highlight Olaf and Jax's bans. Very cool that G2 have done the research, because obviously Jax and Olaf are 2 champions that Oscarini likes to play, and it also seems to be the best answers into Varus top lane. We take a look at this sample size here. Olaf is something that shows up, and then Jax is something that shows up. And this pool, of course, these are the 2 champions that Mr. Oscarini likes to play. So, interesting. Maybe it was time for Yasuo, but that's of course something only that Midwin, Adam, and Bibi himself have played. But very cool research here. There's probably something better to pick than Renekton, but I know that players, of course, are afraid of going out of their comfort zone. And at least with Renekton, you know, this is a champion that gets blinded in a lot of games, right? You blind pick Renekton, and then if you play against Varus, you just gank it, you deal with it, you get Tabi, you fall behind in CS, and you accept it. I don't think it's the worst thing possible to be on Renekton in this game. Sure, like if you are like some uber scientist, it's like you are crazy in the head. It's like, oh, you're the boss, you're picking Ramos in this spot and you just know how to carry games, or you play like more fight, you drop CS behind, the enemy has a fucking misfortune, Varus, Koki, and you're gonna be juiced up on this champ, or like you're gonna play Jarvan top, you know, like Jarvan top, enemy is immobile, whatever the fuck, like everything is, you can add some spice here, but obviously you want to stick to comfort, and Renekton still together with Brand. It's like you land one gank onto the Varus with no cleanse, and all of a sudden, you know, the Renekton doesn't look too bad, right? So I think it's important to highlight that. So I highlight again the fragility of Lucian. Humanoid is a player that gets ganked a lot. In this particular case, G2 do have prior with the MF bot. MF has been very important in those wins. Mickey walks on mid wave and Humanoid gets pushed out. He doesn't die. God bless. We go a little bit forward and there's a contestation in the 3v3 on mid. Humanoid is also practiced now and calling his homies, but this is a little bit too dry. Mickey gets to walk up, he goes on his horse, and Humanoid just gets flashed on. No reaction from Mr. Marek Brazda. I don't know what his expectation is. Maybe his expectation is that, you know, June just goes on caps. Because I could see a world where June just flash Qs on caps and Humanoid just turns around and they one tap him with the Ignite. That's something that could be entirely possible, right? I think that if Fnatic react properly to here, I could see a world where, you know, they just turn and kill caps here, right? But they don't. June misses his abilities and Humanoid dies pretty much for free, right? Like, imagine they just flash, snap, react on caps and they kill him back. I think that it would have been a game changer. Razok trades with Sejuani and he wins that trade. And the bros are on the board. G2 is already 1,000 gold ahead. There's a lot of back and forth in this game. I wanted to highlight this one because I think this was quite incredible to me, because I don't think this is a dive angle, but usually you have junglers waiting in pixel. So I was quite curious about what Yike was doing, but he was on Tribush and manages to save BB, because this all-in is not too bad from Oscarini. You know, he's trying to find some, some fight back by trapping in the bush. I think this was a good move. I think this was a solid move, but AI counter ganks that beautifully and finds the kill. I think this once again highlights just how important that 3v3 is, and also how OP Brand really is, because I thought Humanoid at first is just completely crazy because he's getting CC chained here, and Mickey doesn't get the W off because Mickey did kind of a weird combo. Instead of WRing, he RW'd. I'm not so sure if that's a thing. I've never seen that before. I think it looks like a mistake to me. I think he could have Q WR'd, and then I think he would have changed CC'd Humanoid. But nevertheless, you see that Brand is coming in here and he's ready to cook. Look at that damage of Brand peppering, and then the Kraken Slayer Lucian as well. I think that as a timing to fight, I think it's quite poor for blue side, considering Lucian has an item advantage. This is something that is very true for, of course, the Tristana matchup as well, where we see, you know, Ninja Tabi, Koki against a Lucian with Kraken. But in this case, Koki even has fucking Mercury threats, right? For the 3v3 and not the 1v1 isolate the matchup. So Humanoid is very strong here. I think this is poor selection from G2's side. But I think also in a world where you have Miki play it better, I think it could be a kill. Noah tries something. Something is an understatement. He ints. This is a terrible play. I think that there's no rush at all. It seems like both Oscarinin and Noah were both quite desperate. It seems like Noah hesitated a lot in his decision, because I think maybe if he stacks his Kraken before he sends it, I think maybe it could have been better. I don't know, he could have stacked it on the turret maybe. He tries to go and find the isolated kill. Maybe if he commits all the way instead of wasting time tethering out of the turret, flashing over them right away, maybe he could get a kill. Maybe it's the play, but he uses a lot of tools and Hansama gets a kill, and there's that. So yeah, Varos being very far ahead, MF being very, very far ahead. Fnatic's composition needs, of course, to snowball in this one with their champs. Screening dies again, and it's looking quite tough already. Similar to in that game too, G2 kind of a rush here. I think that it's understandable why they want to look for this, because they see Kai'Sa and Renekton on the mid wave and Humanoid on the top wave. But Razork flashing the Sejuani ult and the MF ult is the crucial detail here. They're trying to get him, but two big ults were used in pursuit of Razork, and Yike can't find contact. And then now you see that Varos is collapsing from so far away. It's like G2 want to punish that little window when 3 people showed on waves, but he couldn't do so because Razork flash on the Sejuani ult, which was very, very good. Instead, Fnatic are now in a situation where they fight a 4v5. Miki tries to fight back, but a lot of abilities have already been used. MF ult has already been gone, and Oscarinin finds a nice kill on Misfortune. This one was quite interesting as well, because G2 they find a nice turn on 2, but I think Yike just kind of oversteps. Oscarinin dies here from the Varos Q, and the 1-for-1, it is what it is. Not sure why Yike Qs forward here, because here G2, of course, they can't funnel through this little choke here. It's too difficult. There's no space for them to play. They're all going to get hit by the same spells. So Yike queuing forward here is a mistake. I think they've already won the spot and they can go from out. Now the continuation. June with the hero play of the day. He just eased over the wall to die. Completely desync to his teammates. I like what Razork does here though. He bounces the ultimate of the dragon to reach caps and then bounce onto the rest of his teammates. And then Noah ults forward, they manage to kill. This pursuit of BB cost them so much, because maybe Fnatic could walk away from this. Oscarinin TPs and they do Nash. Instead, they walk forward, they try to get more. And they don't. Very, very bad. This could have been Nash maybe. You guys see a world where they do Nash, Renekton TPs, they hit. Razork has Smite. I think they could have potentially done Nash. Very costly mistake here. This, I don't understand why this is so common in Europe, because it's similar to how G2 lost that game number 3. Similar this game, I don't understand why Fnatic is just walking every motherfucker on the mid wave. Why is Leona on the mid wave? Why is Renekton on the mid wave? Why can't Noah hit this for free and the other homies just stay in fog of war, pressure in fog of war, walk forward if the enemy contests the Kai'Sa and nothing else? But instead we have, look at the Musketeers here. Leona and Renekton just walking on the wave. What are they doing? What are they doing? Why are 5 people showing? Why is everybody just showing their big fat face here? No reason at all. Miki just queues. They get the Seju ult, Varos ult. Why is Leona and Renekton allowing themselves to get engaged on? We will never find out. That's Nasher, and then also the game. Very pathetic way to lose the game. Very sad from Fnatic, because they had some fighting chances, especially after that fight on top side. But instead, the game is completely over. So this was the big moment of truth. Game number 5. Blue side is banning Ashe and Misfortune. I think it's good analysis here. They realize that these are the champions that give enemy bot lane prio, and this allows them to send their support into mid lane and gank Marika Brastalini. So they are removing all those 80s, and at the same time removing the Varos, because they are preparing for the Renekton first pick. The enemy team has to ban Rumble Tristana, and they keep the Azir ban, which opens Nidalee for the first time. At this moment, you can ask yourself, oh, it was what Razor said in an interview. It's like, you could first pick Sejuani here and repeat what has been done in the city so far, because the enemy most likely won't play Nidalee. And you can just play the game like that, pick the Renekton away yourself, and then play a Seju game, no problem. But in this moment, when you pick Renekton, you are challenging the enemy to pick Sejuani to play your Nidalee. That is not a strategy that always pays off. But everyone was very curious. Nidalee was banned 4 games, and then in game number 5, it is opened. What does G2 know? What does Fnatic know? What are they about to reveal to the world? We have the Lucian. I hate it. I think in Europe, I just don't like it. Caps is a good Lucian. Humanoid is a good Lucian. I just don't think in terms of the precision of the games that it makes sense. I think that Koki can scale, and I think that Humanoid just ends up on the champion that is better for him. So they have Renekton, Koki, Nidalee, and the 1-2-3. The follow-up is Twisted Fate, which I don't think is too bad. It gives you some AP damage, gives you Mercs value for the enemy team, which is nice, right? Because you're going to be AD heavy, and obviously your AD doesn't want to play Ziggs. If your AD is willing to play Ziggs, that is pretty cool, right? It's like you can play maybe Jax, or if you feel so bold, maybe Camille into Renekton, right? You can do some cooking. But he goes for Twisted Fate because, you know, they want to have a range champion to Renekton. And I don't think it's too crazy, honestly. I don't think it's too crazy. I don't think it's horrible. I think it's alright. I think Sejuani is not picked only for melee. I think it's picked so you have flexibility to pick what you want in the draft. Obviously, you want to pair it with melee champs, but I think that Twisted Fate is not a bad pick here. The bans continue. I think that this 4-5 bans highlights the champion pools, because red side banning Ezreal, Seri themselves just shows the weakness of Hansama on the patch. And then Draven Kaiser specifically for Hansama. So he goes for the Caitlyn. He doesn't have the guts to run back the Jhin after that game. And then here in this spot, Jhin gets locked in and Rel. Another game where Jhin is quite good. Sure, the enemy has Sejuani Braum, but the enemy also has 3 long-range champions that are very weak against these long-range barrage type champions. So I think that Jhin suits very well with the identity of the team. And then Renekton, Nidalee, Koki can still kill frontliners, so I think it makes a lot more sense. Koki does a lot more damage to frontline than, for example, Ezreal, in my opinion, if he wants to itemize that direction. So, I think that the bot lane matchup favored for Fnatic, and then I think that the top 2v2 should be good for Twisted Fate and Sejuani if they can maintain the momentum of Twisted Fate. If Twisted Fate makes a mistake, dies, all of a sudden Nidalee Renekton can take over the game. And then finally, we need to highlight the 3v3 on mid. Braum, Sejuani, Lucian is a very strong one, but Koki, Nidalee, Rel is also very strong. I think this is quite competitive. I don't think there's necessarily an edge for anyone, but I have to say if I have to choose, probably the Lucian side because he has more control of the wave in the 1v1. But nevertheless, we jump into the game. The Razork Masterclass breakdown. The starting point is the top lane gank. Oscarinin does it beautifully. Oscarinin getting harassed under the turret. He's bleeding bad. Broken Blade is doing his job good. I don't know why BB went Q, escalate point of Q, not sure. Maybe it's his own tech. Usually we don't see that, but it is what it is. Here, the timing of Oscarin's W is so beautiful because it happens just as the card is flying, which means that Twisted Fate gets aggro. Razork flashes over the wall, and it kind of reminds me of that game at Worlds last year where Razork played Talia and Oscarinin played Renekton, and they tried to pull that dive off. This seems like growth. They managed to get the stun in, the spear lands, and BB just dies to the turret. Very nice timing stun here from Oscarinin. The card flying onto him gets the W off, even though the stun is there, and it's well done. June and Humanoid take a lot of damage here. Caps is pushing forward. And nice Q here from Humanoid to poke. And the situation continues. June is level 3. The Q lands onto Caps. Mickey drops Giga low. This is a Braum without E. He has WQ, and he's taking a lot of shit pushing forward. Gets W'd from Jhin from afar. Very nice map opening here from Noah. I repeat once again, no bot lane prior from G2 is always costing them. No bot lane prior from Fnatic is always costing them. So all of a sudden, Razork is 2-0. The question is, what does Nidalee do when she's ahead? Now, Nidalee gets to buy very strong items that allow her to clear faster. And when she clears faster, it means that she's first in every situation. If she's first in every situation, it means that the enemy needs to face check into her spears, into her traps. And that is how Nidalee gets value. If she is not ahead on tempo, not ahead on momentum, can't clear camps faster, and she falls behind, she's completely useless. That's why Nidalee ahead clears camps faster, can spend more time on the map, and then the enemy needs to choose to sacrifice camps to then, of course, keep up with her. And this is how Nidalee kind of explodes her lead. So this is a dream start here for Razork. His team set him up for success, and Mickey kind of ran it down in the 3v3. Let's see how he converts. So Noah kind of grieves, gets caught on a slow pushing wave out. Big mistake. Noah was looking kind of nervous in this one, but it didn't matter because Razork was in tune. Let's fast forward to I guess we can look at the 2v2 bot before. I think this is just a moment where I think Fnatic is surprised by the dive really working. I think they felt safe in this moment, but they were not because Noah just doesn't have sums, and that's the price they pay from before, right? It's like Noah, no sums from before, walks into the trap on the turret, gets killed, Mickey dies too, but they are very, very happy to do this trade, of course. So Caitlyn's fed. I feel like Caitlyn's such a fake champion in terms of having leads. There's such a big power dip between item 1, 2, and then 3. I think if she can get 4 items, 3 items maybe, in some games, she can become a monster. But on item 2 and 1, I feel like her leads is so insignificant, it's so inconsequential in the fights that happen around those timers. So here we have a big one. Nidalee jumps over the wall and steals the Drake. Look at Razork, Eye of the Tiger, meow, gets it. The crucial detail here is, I don't know if Miak actually has smite, but if you take a look at the jungle pet, 21 and then 16, he is several camps ahead and has the 900 damage smite versus the 600. Could be that the Ike has no smite, but this is a very, very nice calculated move from Razork. He jumps over the wall, gets a smite in, and G2's reaction is terrible. They're like, damn, we need to kill this guy. But they need to keep in mind, you know, they're champions. Like Caitlyn, she needs long fights where she can hit and kite backwards. In terms of a burst fight, this team is not the greatest. Look how angry they get at Razork. They send the Sejuani ult, they can't connect the trap, and then the flash from Razork gets him out of range. Mickey goes full melee mode as if he's Alistar, and Mickey goes very, very deep, Yike 2. Very bad reaction from G2 to try to, of course, punish the fact that the enemy sold Drake, but there was nothing for them there. Nidalee with Liandry, so quick in bushes, crosses into bottom side, jungle pet almost finished, Oscarina is also committed all the way here, Broken Blade has TP, but they get push off the turret, Koki is on the wave on bottom side, they're collapsing in, and Noah gets solo killed. He just had to give that up, but honestly, Noah's death here is honestly not that bad. I think it's maybe even good. Like Caps uses all of his resources to kill him, and also it's a kill for Humanoid. I don't know if it was intentional by Noah, but the outcome for sure is good. Trading side, TF is pushing top, Renex is pushing bottom, and then the little cheeky plant puts Caps in vision of Humanoid because he crosses the bush. I think the rest of the game really is just Lucian's weaker on side, gets pushed in, there is no threat on Jhin, Nidalee, Rel, Koki just taking over side, June putting all the vision down for Humanoid, allows him to push all the way through, which is very nice. Fnatic cross into mid after they spot Braum and Sejuani overcommitting. The grubs finish the turret. It's just Razork is so nimble, you know. He already cleared all of his camps, he's so nimble, he can hover into bottom side, secure the push, hover into mid after Sejuani defends. They're just moving in between objectives. Very good macro, Fnatic. Another highlight here, right, of Nidalee. She has 2 items. She's already on the objective. Can't stand in the bushes and poke, which is what the champion is for. She needs to just be first there, have her camps cleared, keep her farm up, and just be in position to poke the enemy as they enter into objectives. That's the job of the champ. That's why being ahead is so important. Having the champions that can create that space for you is so important. You need to be first on the objective, be there ahead of everybody else, and prepare the area as if you are Rambo in First Blood, you know, where you set up all the traps and then the enemy enters, so you drew First Blood, you know, when he has like his PTSD triggers and all that shit. Anyhow, this fight, the game decider, they spot, of course, Oscarinin with the TF ult, and Oscarinin is so far away from everybody, and then the TF ult rounds out as BB TPs, and he is not in vision. And BB wastes his card, so he cards the Drake because, of course, the card is running out, and this is the moment for Fnatic to snap and to push forward. Even though June dies, it doesn't matter too much. Oscarinin gets a really nice slice and dice onto everybody. Nice Q, nice stride breaker. Very well played from Oscarini, Panini. And the rest is history. The rest is history. Yak is very deep. Miki is also very deep. And the DPS of Koki is just too immense with the Malamune here. And with some nice Nidalee maneuvering, they managed to clean up the rest of the fight. And Fnatic is poised to beat G2 for the first time in a long time in the best of 5. In a long time. Fnatic hovering for the Koki, just contesting space. I think that Oscarinin goes a little bit too deep here. I think that he takes a lot of free damage, and G2 are contesting the space nicely. But I think this over pursuit is what costs them, and June just finds the snap. June is back, I feel like. You know, some very good engages, good snap on the front line. They break them apart just in time for Humanoid's arrival. Very well played. I like that a lot. And Fnatic invite G2 to tango, but there is nothing to be done. 4v3, the champions are just full range, and Humanoid with the Tavi and the Nidalee heal is just way stronger than enemy carries. And Fnatic beat them up with a fucking Nidalee, Renekton. They did what Damwon couldn't. Nidalee Renekton game 5. What a demon performance from Razork. Really executing the setup here, right? Was just June on the mid wave, playing way better than Mickey with his spells. And then, of course, the stun on the top turret. Nidalee had a 2-0 advantage, and he just fucking ran with it. Secured 6 grubs for the trade of Noah's life. Noah made 2 mistakes, right? Dying on bot in the 2v2 and also dying in isolation. Not the 2v2, sorry, the dive, because he died in isolation because he had no sums. But Noah did his job, right? Noah did his job. In terms of performances, right, to summarize the series, I do think that, like, in my mind, I think that for BB, this was like a 5 out of 10. I think this was like very poor, honestly, like even less. Like, I think this is some of the worst games I've seen from BB. I think like his Jace performance and his Varus in game 4 kind of boost the score. So I kind of want to give him a 5 still. I think that the Renekton game really pulls it down though. So it's like a 5 minus. I think Oscarinin, I think the Ornn game was super, super nice. I think this Renekton game was super solid. I would give him a 6 out of 10 because there was still some blunders there that were kind of eye-popping. A higher score than BB. I think Yike, like Razork, honestly, like I think the Sejuani game after being on the back foot. I think the Brand game, he played brilliantly. I think Razork, like legit, like a 9.5 for me out of 10. Fucking lovely. I think that Yike did a good job of keeping him up, but I didn't like his Brand play too much. I think, you know, his Brand play could be better. His Zyra play mechanically could be better too, but I think that Yike had some good invades, some good angles, some good engages. I think the Maokai game, I can't really blame him, but his build was kind of bad. But I do think that he kept up relatively well there, 8 out of 10 in my mind. I think Humanoid, and I think the Lucian games, they kind of stick out as a sore thumb in terms of how much he died on the mid-wave. But I think partially is also that the 3v3, those games they played against MF bot as well, which allowed support to roam into Humanoid's lane, which is like the counter to Humanoid if anything. But still, Humanoid mechanically, the Aussie games, I think he carried super fucking hard. So I feel like a 9 out of 10 there is really fucking solid for me. I think it's really, really, really good performance. I think Caps is up there too, but I do think, you know, There was like moments in the Ezreal game where he got caught, and I think that's kind of stands out. I think that the performance of Humanoid overall, I do think is better than Caps' performance on the day. And I think that it's good that G2 face a team where, you know, they can't get away with just Caps carrying. So I would give Caps kind of a 8.5. Maybe I put Yak score to 7, if anything. Maybe 7. I'm just doing this impromptu. Hans Sama, I think Hans Sama was, you know, I don't know. I think the issue of not playing Zeri, not playing Ezreal is a big pain point. I think that he played fine in the Jhin game, right? He played good, but having nothing else to pick there is definitely a pain point. Not being able to flex Ezreal into bot is a pain point. I liked the Misfortune games because his prior was very relevant. So I think like Hans Sama, you know, I think a 7 out of 10. I would give him 7 out of 10. I think like Noah, I think the Caitlyn game was a rough one, right, from him. The Caitlyn game that they won was a painful one to watch, in my opinion. I think this game, even though he did mistakes, did his job. I think that, you know, if anything, I think a similar score to Hans Sama, maybe a 7.5 out of 10 makes sense to me. Yeah, the June, I think that he seemed like a similar self. I think it's good that they spotted the pattern of the game, right? June finding some good engage, especially in game 5. I think that in game 3, I think that is the one that drags down the scoreline for every Fnatic member, despite the fact that they won. I do think that June did a fantastic job. I think that he deserves like an 8.5. I think that Mickey today, I will give him like an 8. Keep in mind, don't put too much weight into these numbers. Like they don't matter super much. This is just something that I did impromptu in this moment after some reflection. So don't put too much weight into these numbers. Maybe if I think about this more, the numbers will shift and maybe they will change. It's just that I'm doing it through the lens of my own bias. So keep this in mind. Finally, main takeaways, right? It's just that 3v3 mid is insanely important. 3v3 mid is insanely important, which ties into, of course, bot prio. Bot prio is key. Whoever pushes bot has better access with support into the 3v3 mid, and the fireworks are happening there. I think that Azir is very strong, Azir plus, and Lucian minus. Lucian blind is very weak, and I think that the teams suffered very hard today when they did so. Lucian was losing every game that he was in on the day. Finally, I think just Noah champ pool gap is pretty big here because of the meta. The Zeri and the Lucian being in his pocket is big, but at the same time, he doesn't play Ashe. Zeri Lucian, I wrote Zeri, it's fucking Zeri Ezreal. But at the same time, right, Hansi has his MF and he also has his Ashe. So maybe I'm calling it the champion pool gap, but in the end, it's like there are some champions that Hans plays and there's some champions that Noah plays, but it seems like these pushing ADs are a little bit more higher prio in this series, because even though Ezreal and Zeri are strong, they aren't necessarily known for winning lane. And I think in the case where G2 pushes bot, I do feel like Mickey is very good at taking over games with his jungler. AP junglers still really fucking strong. I think we can round it off there. I'm excited for the rematch that's going to happen in the finals. I think it's very likely. I think on final note, to congratulate Fnatic, I think that, you know, Fnatic started 6-0 and went on a massive lose streak, right? Massive lose streak. And they played bad at EWC. They got beaten by Team Liquid. And I think Fnatic, people clowned on them. I clowned on them. And I think in a lot of cases, deservedly so. And a big thing for me was that Fnatic took so much pride in the 6-0 in terms of how they presented it. And everyone thought right away that everything has changed. But the true test was, of course, when they're going to fight G2 and they're going to play these best of fives and how they're going to execute and where their head state and mental is going to be in those moments. And I think that I was too quick to clown on Fnatic after they went 0-5 because of the underperformance of Humanoid, the underperformance of Razork. And the same thing, you know, where a lot of Fnatic enjoyers were too quick to hype them up for the 6-0. We should have all kept the state of mind that the true test will happen when they face up against G2 in the best of fives. Because only then we will know if the Fnatic is strong mentally, if the performance coach, the changes to the systems are truly good. I think this was a step in the right direction. Noah started off iffy, but he caught it back up. I like the fact that they had the balls to drop Nidalee and Renekton after having that game 3 performance. You know, maybe it hanged in a tight balance. Maybe they lose that game 3, all of a sudden 2-1. Maybe they are different. Maybe the series played out just the way it needed to for Fnatic to have the strength in game 5 to pull through. But I think if you look at it through the lens of the expectations of Fnatic, them beating G2 and whatever form they're in, I think is, you know, a way of breaking a massive wall. Because this Fnatic alteration has fought against this G2 alteration for soon 2 years, and this is the first significant win. This is, of course, only one step, but a massive step in the right direction, because Fnatic will now wait with G2 in the finals. And the rematch might be the most exciting one yet. See you then.